No!
I collect video games. It's probably pretty obvious. And if you clicked on this, you'll probably do too, or maybe you're thinking about it. Maybe the Sony news with discs going away is making you think a little bit more about that backlog and how to start collecting and building a library of your old games. So let's dive in, starting to talk about the differences between greatest hits and Black Label games. You're going to want to decide which one of these you want. And it can differ per game. For me, Legend of Dragoon is one of my favorite games. One of the biggest differences with greatest hits versus Black Label is typically Black Label has really nicely designed color discs. You'll see that the greatest hits ones tend to be a little bit more like a blah gray. And sometimes in the greatest hits, the manuals are also in black and white rather than being full color. So things to consider, whether it's important to you. If there's a special game, I recommend trying to track down the Black Label version. If it's one you just want to have to be able to go and play, then it doesn't matter. You can get the greatest hits version. So the difference can be really subtle. On the Black Label Spider-Man, you can see Spider-Man is in yellow. On the greatest hits, it's just a blank white, but for the most part, the discs are pretty much the same. The artwork's the same, and even the manuals are black and white in both cases. So they're not going to be drastic changes in all the cases, just some of them. So really just search up, see what each edition comes with, and do your research there before getting into it. It is important to note that while, for the most part, the game contents of each version is the same, sometimes there's differences. I think Resident Evil is one of them. Resident Evil 1 specifically has some differences in the music, something about licensing in the greatest hits version. So you want to look at that because these were printed later. So if changes were made, sometimes maybe they could fix a bug or something changed with the rights or whatever. It might be slightly different. So you want to kind of take a look at that. For the most part, though, it's like 99% the same game. And for most cases, it's going to be the exact same game. You're not going to notice a difference. Okay, once you decide what type of game you want, whether you want the greatest hits or a Black Label version, what I suggest is that you make a list and buy things in person. Always in person. You might find some deals online. The problem with buying online is that every time you look, it's going to have a picture. It's going to be this perfect disc that you're not going to see any scratches in. And then you're going to get it in the mail. It's going to be scratched. Maybe the disc is going to be a little bit different, and you might be disappointed. When you buy in person, especially things like game conventions, when you go to smaller ones, I find that I always end up finding one or two gems. And you get one or two games at a time, and it adds up. And you can look at it. You can be like, okay, this case is in perfect shape. This disc is in perfect shape. This is one that I'm really going to be happy with. So I'm going to go ahead and pick it up. So another thing to be aware of is that, when you're buying secondhand, especially if things look, a little bit more beat up, maybe people are kind of trying to piece them together to sell them as complete, you'll notice that it's the wrong disc in the particular packaging. I went ahead, I actually wanted to try one of these demos that were packed in with Tomb Raider, popped the disc in, it was a totally other set of demos. So not only was it not right for this, it wasn't right for, what was on the label. I think this is actually the disc in here, the greatest hits version, but it's got actually the regular Tomb Raider 1 disc for the Black Label. So people kind of piece it together. So if that's important to you, again, just do your research ahead of time so you know what to look for. And maybe you could find something good. Somebody put a Black Label disc in a greatest hits case, and then you can pick that up and then swap it with a case that you already have. Okay, another thing that's really important to me is case artwork. So I want a good quality case. I want things to look like they're in good shape. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to ensure that. Number one, obviously, again, buying in person is great. A lot of times you'll see kind of ones with the stickers on them. You can, usually that's a good sign of, hey, it's worth kind of going and looking at this. If you are comfortable with swapping a case, a lot of people will do CD cases. I find they feel kind of like cheap and not as weighty. They're not the same as the old school ones. One of the options you have is tracking down some of these games. You get a game that's maybe a little bit less desirable, that's brand new, you can get it for a few bucks, and you can swap it in so you have a legitimate PlayStation case there, and then you also can keep that game as well. So that's kind of a little trick I use if I get a game that's in really good shape except for the case, and it's one of my holy grails, then that's something that you can do, especially if you're just keeping it in your personal collection and you're not trying to resell it as completely original. One special thing to know with cases, for the most part, you have, these single cases, you have these double cases. These are a little bit harder to replace because there's not as many cheap games that are double disc. So just keep that in mind if you care a lot about the case quality. The other thing is that some of the games, such as Dino Crisis, there's only a handful of these, have a case that's single, but it actually holds 2 discs. And it opens up like this, and they break very easily, as I unfortunately learned. So if you see one of these, be very cautious with opening it up, and know that it's only really a handful of games that have this kind of way of opening. So it's a case that you want to be a little more cautious of, because it is a little bit more of a pain to replace if you need to. Once you do find a case, you can get these little cellophane bags that you can put it in and just kind of keep dust off it and keep it looking as good as humanly possible, and then you can take it out and play it whenever you want. Another thing you should decide is whether you care about the inserts. So lots of games, Grand Theft Auto is a great example because they usually have a poster and map in addition to manuals. So decide ahead of time, do I want this? Will this bother me if I don't have all of the inserts? Because if it will, and you find it without it, don't buy it. You're gonna find another copy, another nice cleaner copy. You can piece things together, but then you have to be very patient. That can be a bit of a challenge. Though I have done that in the past. I got stuff falling apart here, but I found a Mega Man Legends game for very cheap. It is the Black Label version. So I have the case, I have the disc, but I'm missing the manual. So that's something that I'm going to need to now wait and track down eventually. And then same thing, I found this Jackie Chan manual for a couple bucks, and the game complete goes for a lot of money. So, and I happen to have a loose disc. So you can do it, but just keep in mind it might take you some time. And in general, I'd say be patient is one of the biggest things. It's easy to think, oh my gosh, I got to get all this before prices skyrocket, but they fluctuate. You're not probably going to have time to play all the things, so just focus on quality over quantity when you're collecting games. That's the kind of the big lesson I learned. As you can see, I've made some mistakes because you see stacks of games everywhere. But when I find a copy and it is in like pristine condition and the artwork's real nice and it has everything in it, I'm just ecstatic, and I love seeing it on the shelf and playing with it. Okay, let's go on to talk about some expensive games. So Tomba is one that has gotten pretty expensive. You have things like Adventures of Tron Bonne. That's like, online will be like $800. The cheapest I ever saw was $400 at a game convention. If you want games like these, maybe they're fond in your memory, or maybe it's a sequel to a game that's fond in your memory, or it's a game you've heard is really good. My advice is play it first. Before you ever buy it, before you ever try tracking it down, play it first. See if you like it. There's lots of games that, maybe you remember being really good when you were a kid, or you've heard nothing but good things. Once you start playing it, it just doesn't connect with you anymore. An example of that for me was Tomba. So I bought Tomba and Tomba 2 at the same time. Tomba is one of my favorite games ever. You should totally play this game if you haven't. It's charming, 2D, just really fun and good-hearted and fun quests. And then I played this, and it was just so different. It's 3D. There's horrible voice acting in it. I'm absolutely going to make a video about this guy. And I kind of had some buyer's remorse. Like, why did I spend so much money on this? This guy's a classic. This guy is, a collectible, but I personally don't love it. So, so play the game, emulate it, try it out, and then if you love it, you're like, man, this was great. I'm going to put it in the collection. Then you can feel good about what you have. Curate a library for yourself that you really love. Oh, speaking of inexpensive games, that is one of the biggest benefits of the greatest hits games for the most part. Now it's changing a little bit. People are starting to go after greatest hits apparently. But I bought, for example, a sealed Final Fantasy IX greatest hits version of the game, and it was like 30 bucks, right? So sealed from the 90s, in a protective case around that. So you can get a lot of great games for really cheap if you're willing to do the greatest hits version. So if it's one that you're like, I enjoy this, I want to be able to play it, but it's not my favorite, consider the greatest hits. All right, my last tip is just this. There's no wrong way to collect. Maybe you're total psycho like me and you need things to be super pristine, and if you can have the Black Label one, then you're going to be real excited over it, and you care about the artwork and you care about the pieces. I kind of do for the most part. But maybe you don't care about that. Maybe you just like getting the loose discs and putting them in a binder and just being able to play. That's fine. That's cool. Go for it. And heck, that's way cheaper. I wish I was a little bit more like that. But at the end of the day, collect the way you want to collect. But remember, be patient, buy stuff in person, be selective about what you want, and do your research ahead of time so you know exactly what comes in each package. With that, thanks for listening. I hope this was helpful. If you end up adding a cool game to your collection, let me know. I'd be very curious if anybody listens to this at all, but also if the tip actually helped you in building your library. With that, thanks a lot for listening. What? No way! Oh man! The f is this?